You would be hard-pressed to find a more misunderstood plant than the Venus flytrap. It is gotten a very bad reputation for being a difficult growing plant, and that could not be further from the truth. In today's video, I want to answer some of the most asked questions about this plant and help you on your journey growing them. So without further ado, let's get started. Hope you enjoy. So the very first question that I want to touch on is the biggest. Are they difficult plants to grow? And without sounding a little salesy, they actually are probably one of the easiest plants to grow, especially in the carnivorous plant realm outside of like a sundew. These plants are significantly easier to grow than they are given credit for. And so I want to walk you through how to grow that, but by answering the questions that have been asked around these plants. And so the very first question I will say is, what kind of water do they take? And so they, just like most other, if not all other carnivorous plants, are going to want reverse osmosis, rainwater, or distilled water. You want to have waters that don't have any minerals, especially with Venus flytraps. You don't want anything that has copper in it, as they're susceptible to that, especially. The second question is going to be, can you top water them? So there's this misnomer that you can't top water this, they'll crown rot too fast, and you absolutely can top water these plants. Now, you're going to want to try to avoid the plant if you can, but it's not necessary. They get rained on all the time in their natural habitat, and so they certainly can be top watered. There is a caveat there, though, and that is, what kind of environment do they need? They're going to want a open space with plenty of airflow and plenty of light. And so that goes to the next question. How much light do they need? A lot of people think, well, this is too hot for me, so therefore it's too hot for these plants. And that couldn't be further from the truth. These plants wanted bright sun and hot. Now, if you're hitting temperatures that are well into the high 90s or even hundreds for long periods of time, you may consider giving them some dappled shade. But for the most part, for most growers, they're going to want south facing, and they're going to want it hot, and they're going to want about 12 hours of direct sunlight. So the next question would be, what type of soil do you use? These plants are going to want a inert soil, and so a lot of growers use peat and perlite, which is what I do, and then there are some growers that use a sand in there as well. Now, you just need to make sure that it is a sand that is mineral free, like a blasting sand or a pool sand. Here is a big question. This one gets around a lot. Should you let your Venus flytraps flower? Now, there is some validity to this question. Flowers do take an enormous amount of energy away from the plant. And so if your plant is small, let's say something like this, it may not be a good idea to let them flower, as it will drain them of their energy very fast. But if it is a larger plant, certainly they can flower. It will sort of pause their growth for a while, but it will not kill your plant. Now, you can also feed your plant while it is flowering, and that will help give it strength. But certainly, if you're not really into the flowers or don't want to propagate, you can just take them off. Which brings me to my next question. How do you propagate Venus flytraps? Venus flytraps grow with a rhizome, and so there's a couple different ways to propagate them. One is you can wait until you repot them and then divide the rhizomes, and then that's how you can get more. You can do leaf pullings as long as you get a piece of that rhizome with it. And just like we were talking about with the flowers, you can actually take the flower off, plant the flower, and you can get new plants growing off of that flower. Very easy. They're actually extremely easy to propagate. They don't have nearly as high of a strike rate as some of the other carnivorous plants like sundews, but they certainly do well. Now back to the flowers with the seeds. Do you need to cold stratify Venus flytrap seeds? And the answer is no. You can plant them directly, or not plant them, but spread them on the soil as soon as you get them, and they will do just fine. And so on that note, do not cover up your Venus flytrap seeds. Put them right on the soil, spray them with a little water, and let the rest happen. All right, so the next question that we get a lot is, are these black traps a sign of death? And the answer is no. Venus flytraps have a very high leaf turnover rate. It takes a lot of energy to create these leaves and to sustain them. And so when the plant no longer needs it, it will kill them off very fast, but it will grow back more. Now, if all of the plant starts turning black at once, then you've got a problem like a root rot or a crown rot. But for the most part, this type of behavior right here is perfectly normal. And while we're on the subjects of leaves, a lot of the questions people ask is, should you remove the dead leaves? Now, this one comes with a little caveat. So the short answer is you don't have to. They don't get removed in the wild, and they will do just fine. But here is the caveat. If you are in a particularly wet area where it gets a lot of rain, maybe there's not a lot of airflow, you should remove those, because you don't want rot to start setting in. And so as long as they're in an open area like I have mine, you can leave them. As a matter of fact, they may even help with cooler nights to help insulate them a bit, but it's totally up to you. A lot of people like to remove them just because they don't look great. I tend to grow mine a little bit more natural, but I also live in an area that is more wide open, gets plenty of sun, plenty of airflow, so it works out just fine. So the next question is going to go back to water. How much water do Venus flytraps need? Now, they don't like having their roots stay wet for long periods of time, but they do want a moist soil. And so if you have a 1/4 inch to 1 inch of water in your tray, that will do just fine. If it's winter, you can still keep them in water and it will do just fine. As a matter of fact, contrary to popular belief, if you get extremely cold winters, it's a good idea to keep them in a little higher water level, so it helps insulate the rhizome and the roots from freezing. A lot of people think you need to dry them out during the winter, which is not true at all. I usually keep mine in about a 1/4 inch of water, and then I will allow them to dry out maybe a day or two, as long as, and when I say dry out, I mean the tray dry out. The plants, the soil itself is going to stay moist. The next question is, should you feed Venus flytraps anything else other than insects? And the answer is absolutely not. Venus flytraps are obviously evolved to eat insects, and they're going to want live insects. You can feed them plant food, like smashed mealworms and stuff, but you're going to want to massage the traps on the outside to engage the seal on the lobes, so that way it starts producing enzymes. But for the most part, they're going to want live plants, and they need live insects, because they need that to have that movement to trigger those hairs over and over again, so more calcium is released, and so that trap gets a nice seal. Do not ever feed them people food, chicken, steak. Even people talk about you can give them jelly beans. Not necessary. Don't do it. Allow them to eat what they've been evolved to eat, and they will pay you back in dividends. And back to the question of feeding, do Venus flytraps have to eat in order to survive? And the answer is no. The food that they get gives them nitrogen. That is their fertilizer. But just like every other plant, they get their energy from sun. And so they're going to want to photosynthesize just like any other plant. And so they are going to need that sunlight, most importantly. Now, if you grow them outside, they're going to get plenty of food on their own. Believe me on that. Certainly feeding them will encourage faster, more robust growth, but it isn't necessary for survival. All right, so I'm going to keep this video. I might do a part 2. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. There are a lot of questions around these amazing plants, and I'm going to seek out to answer all of them. So I may end up doing a part 2 on this video to touch on all the other ones, but I hope this helps clear up a lot of the questions that people have around these amazing plants.